Hey everyone, I'm here to introduce you to one of our trainers, Sander Deur. Welcome, Sander.
Thank you.
Maybe good to introduce yourself first. Who are you?
My name is Sander Deur. I work as a professional Scrum trainer and general Agile trainer at the Xebia Academy after doing a lot of consultancy for the last, let's say, decade. I made a switch to full-time trainer this year.
And so you train in Scrum and Agile. What kind of certifications do you have in that?
All of them. No, if you look at my Scrum.org profile, for instance, I hold all the Scrum.org certifications, and that's where my main focus has gone to so far, because 90% or maybe even 95% of my work that I've been doing so far, I could leverage from these things. And that's where I've been focusing on the last couple of years. Mostly in the past, I've been an SPC as well, SAFe program consultant. I stopped doing that for a while now because I've been focusing on other scaling frameworks, but that's where the majority of my certifications goes.
Cool. And now you're a full-time trainer. How did you become a trainer actually?
It's a very interesting question. To answer that, I'm going to take you a couple of steps back. I think it's 8 years ago. I ended up in a burnout. I started as a PMO, project management officer, and unconsciously I was always doing or working for the wrong motivations. I was always seeing other people, project managers and product managers, driving big fat BMWs and having perceived status, a lot of money, all cool. And I was always working to do the next step rather than really focusing on what I should be doing at that point, and even less on what made me happy. And after a while, I plummeted into a burnout because this was not sustainable. So I went through quite some therapy, coaching, and so on. And that's where I figured I want to be a Scrum Master. Became a Scrum Master, but I also really enjoyed the conveying part, the teaching part, helping other people become better at their jobs. And I started to combine that. And what I noticed, especially from the Scrum.org community, I received a lot of support. And so that made it a logical step for me to go from a Scrum Master into a professional Scrum trainer, because that connected to that community. And that's my way of giving back to the community that I received the support from initially.
Cool. And helping others is something you like. What are other things in teaching that you like?
So what I really enjoy in my classes is when I have students in there that have critical questions, that have a critical mindset. They don't just blindly accept what I'm trying to convey. Of course, it's good that they listen to me, but it's even better if they try to put it in their context and truly try to understand why, or the why behind whatever I'm trying to tell them, and why that might be useful. Because something that I've seen in consultancy a little bit too often is that people do not question enough why they're doing something. And I've got 3 kids, right? If I ask them something to do, or ask them to do something, the first question and the second and the 16th question I'll get is why. It's always why, because they want to understand. If they don't understand why they're supposed to do something, they won't do it, or they'll do it in a way that's not the most practical. So if I have students in my course that are critically thinking, and how does this apply to my situation? How can I use this, or why should I do this? And really try to understand the purpose behind it, then the theory will stick a lot better.
We receive a lot of feedback from our participants, and it turns out that they actually like being taught by you. Don't ask me why, but why do you think you're a cool trainer or a fun trainer?
Thank you, students, so much for this feedback. Thank you. Oh, I don't know. Something that I've been very aware of in the last, or especially at the end of my burnout and just afterward, is I always try to be someone else, or try to be, again, working for the other motivation, and that kind of left or differentiated between me and something that I tried to be. And that's something that I stopped doing. I'm very much myself. The way that my students will see me is not any different than how I am when I'm not teaching, or when you meet me at a bar, or when I'm doing a podcast or doing something else. I stay true to myself, and apparently that's what resonates with people.
Yeah, I think it does. And looking at Xebia, why is training with Xebia different than with other training companies?
this is almost going to sound like I'm selling the company, but I don't. This is not, of course, but this is not what I intend to with this answer. But the first principle of Xebia is people first, right? And this is the first company that I've seen that actually applies that. And again, I don't want to say that just to sell the company, because that's not what this interview is intended for. But I've worked for so many companies that say, we have our people first. We're like a family and all that fun stuff, and they don't. Ultimately, you're still a number in many organizations. And in this organization, it's vastly different. It feels like home. And I really enjoy being here. I feel the support from the entire organization. If I'm stuck on something or I want to share my thoughts with someone, there are the greatest industry leaders here that I can do that with, or management is super supportive, and that is buzzing throughout the organization. So to me, that's really how I would like to work. Because if I have an idea, I can actually start working on it instead of someone else running off with the idea, or the idea is being dismissed, or I get the support that I need here.
And how translates that into the training that you give? What do people actually experience because of that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think all most of the examples that I use during my training come from either the consultancy, but also the podcast that I run. And I get that support from Xebia as well to do these podcasts, but also to speak at conferences. And by doing so, you accumulate a lot of knowledge, and also other people's input, other people's inspiration, quotes, their perspectives, other theory, and I can bring that all into one single class. And I think that's very powerful to convey, but also to make sure that people understand that this actually works, right? It's not just some cool concept that someone came up with and it sounds picture perfect, but this stuff actually works.
It's not only theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that the difference between theory and practice is still there, but at least this way we make sure that people know this works in practice too.
Yeah, that's what we hear a lot too, actually. Looking besides work, what do you do? What kind of hobbies do you have?
Nothing. My job is my life. I give my life to my job. What I do a lot is, of course, the podcast that consumes quite some time, but I've got 3 kids that I love to play around with and help them and go to their sports. And I've got a dog, a very active one. I've got a 1.5-year-old Labrador called Ace. So I walk a couple of hours with him. I read, but I also play a lot of Call of Duty.
Which is fun too, yeah. And then talking about the podcast, that's a big thing in your life, right? Mastering agility. How did that come about, and how do you approach that actually? How do you find the guests and the topics? And
let's go to the first question. How did that come about? With my previous employer, I was looking for something to differentiate myself, but also because it was a startup company, I wanted to help boost them and stand out in a market, especially because Scrum at that point was increasingly popular, and that company was specifically focused around Scrum and Scrum Masters, etc. And if it becomes a hype, everyone wants to jump the hype train, right? And you got to find something to stand out from the crowd, and to me, that podcasting was something to do that, and not just a podcast with me or with any other Scrum Master. I looked at the biggest names in the industry to connect to, because that is what makes you stand out, right? And that's how I landed, for instance, Formula One drivers, Dave Snowden as well, Dave West from Scrum.org. Recently, we had a lady called Evelien Holsken. She is the CEO of the Free a Girl Foundation. There's so much and such a broad perspective of stories, elements, thought leaders that have joined the podcast just to do so. It's really cool to see, and it's beyond my wildest dreams, because it has exploded, right? There's a Discord community next to it. We've got our own merchandise line. We've got a Medium publication these days. Everything. It's been quite a ride so far.
Yeah, great story. Yeah, and if you want to follow that, please check out the podcast. Well, this was it. Thank you, Sander, for all the questions and a sneak peek into your personal life as well. And I'll talk to you next time.